Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. And of course, good morning to the United States of America. Good morning to all the nips and all these different areas where Nick and crannies, where our signal or 100,000 watt transmitter goes through northeast Texas, southeast Texas, northwest Louisiana, southwest Louisiana. We're going to have a great show for you today. Don't forget the internet. We get a lot of folks chiming in as well from places like Barcelona, Spain, Portugal, all these other places. Anyway, we're going to have a great show for you today. But before we get started, we need to get in the house, in our studio, with the two geniuses. Buenos dias, mis hermanos. Good morning, my brothers.
Hey, good morning, Egberto. Just half a genius here today.
Oh, somebody went out and make some ducats this morning.
Well, I hope so.
I hear you, at the wages, zero. I think that's kind of like a necessity often. What can I say? Anyway, what's going on, my brother? What do you have as the thought of the day, the wisdom of the day?
A little bit on this theocracy stuff. A theocracy is what they're offering the Christian nationalists for their vote. They're using women's reproductive rights, prayer in school, transgender, homophobic rhetoric as propaganda to seal the Christians to this pro-life agenda that takes away women's rights to make that choice on their own. Stop demonizing women's reproductive rights for political gain.
I mean, you nailed it. That was what I call one of the most unholy alliances, and you know what, Jack? I actually think the alliance between, I called it, I think in one of the articles that I wrote, the alliance between MAGA and the evangelical church, because what it really has done, it hasn't really hurt MAGA, but what I think it really has done is it has pretty much destroyed people's faith for those who believed in the church, people's faith in the church, because what it means now is, what does it really mean to be in church when, or the values that you stand for, when now the standard bearer of the values is Donald Trump. It's amazing. I heard, the pastor of the Second Baptist Church, he gave a very long speech at his church. Instead of a sermon, he gave an anti-immigrant speech, an anti-human speech. All of this he started to talk about in church as a pastor. There was no love in, and I'm working on the video right now, cutting some of the videos up and some of the words that he had to say. But there was no love for fellow man. There was the attacking of all progressive politicians, referring to them negatively. There was calling of foreigners garbage. I mean, this was a pastor. This was a pastor speaking that way of others. And like I said, if you had closed your eyes, removed the tone of his voice, you would swear that you were listening to a Trump speech. You would swear that you're listening to somebody who is just a political person and not a follower of the cloth, trying to bring you in or trying to get you to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So I think you nailed it, Jack. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, well, it's, they're getting the Christians to go against their own values with this, when the real Christ-like people are people like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden that risk their life, and their well-being to speak truth to power. that was what Christ was about.
Yeah. And, when you show that you value human beings more than you value anything else, you're right. That is how who Jesus Christ was. That's how who most religious leaders of whatever sect were, right? And it's about humanity. So I think I think the evangelical movement has irreparably damaged what they have ever stood for. But more, I think it is reflected in that they all have fallen numbers of people who take religion seriously, who attend these churches, etc. And I think I think it's gonna continue to get worse, because once you've replaced good virtue with bad, I mean, once you have completely demonized a family man, and you don't have to agree with President Obama's policies or not, but once you have abandoned a family man that in his life has shown the values that your church purports to support, your religion purports to support, a guy like, and there's this big contrast, a guy like President Obama, who has one wife, two children, same wife. Look, I'm not disparaging the lifestyle of anybody at all. But when it talks about the nuclear family, when you talk about the person that follows the rules, when you talk about the person who has not gone out and become a philanderer, when you talk about the person that nurtured his wife and children, all these things that the Christian religion deem what a family is supposed to be. And then you have a Trump that goes out and talks about grabbing women by where, goes out and rapes women, goes out and have many children with different women, goes out and rob people with the businesses that they have. You have that person. And then you have Christians that goes ahead and say, I have no problem voting for somebody like this, then there is in fact a problem. When we see that is what the evangelical pastors, etc., are standing for, we must ask the question, or we must realize why it is that people are leaving the church in droves, because they no longer stand for what they purport to have been. Jack?
Yeah, it's cuckoo.
Anyway, I want to welcome to the chat. Eric Hayes is in the house. He said, you are bashing religion. I don't think I'm bashing religion at all. In fact, I support religion, and I also support and hope that those who support religion would be consistent. We also have Lizard Queen, who says, Christ was love, and speaking truth to power out of love. I have met atheists and other secularists that are more Christian than Christians. It's amazing, because as a humanist, it's sad that the policies that I support as a humanist progressive, you will have in fact. And remember, we have to differentiate between the sect of Christianity. You look at somebody like Reverend Barber, who runs a Poor People's Campaign throughout the country and is right there trying to bring people into the fold. It's a different story altogether. So we have to be able to distinguish where the problem really is. And that's what we need to do. Anyway, folks, we got a great show for you today. The title of the show is Sinema Quits. Nikki Haley may not support Trump. A theocracy brought to you by the GOP. And the way I want to start this is I want to start it with Ali Velshi. And I don't want to say discoveries, but you've got to hear this, and then we'll take it on the other side. If there's any doubt that what we have with the MAGA Republicans in their relationship with evangelical Christians, what we should really now call Christian nationalists, is that they intend not only to control women's bodies by the IVF, what we had with IVF and control, abortion control, etc., but much deeper than that. Ali Velshi exposes that when he points out the writings from this particular judge from Alabama, what he had to say and where he actually speaks. Listen to this and then we'll take it on.
Now, as confusing and radical as the original ruling was, the concurring opinion from the Alabama Chief Justice, Tom Parker, stands out as particularly notable. Chief Justice Parker wrote in his concurrence that Alabama had a, quote, theologically based view of the sanctity of life adopted by the people of Alabama encompasses the following. God made every person in his image. 2, each person therefore has a value that far exceeds the ability of human beings to calculate. And 3, human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God. Now, if you're surprised to see this kind of language in a legal opinion, perhaps you shouldn't be. The very same day that the IVF ruling came down, Chief Justice Parker appeared on a video podcast hosted by a conservative, QAnon-believing, self-proclaimed prophet.
God created government. And the fact that we have let it go into the possession of others is heartbreaking for those of us who understand, and we know it is for him. And that's why he is calling and equipping people to step back into these mountains right now.
Step back into these mountains right now. That's Alabama Chief Justice Parker. And if you look closely, you'd see what it says behind him. Restore the 7. That's a reference to the 7 Mountains Mandate or the 7 Mountains Dominion, which is a Christian evangelical and Pentecostal belief that urges its followers to establish God's kingdom on earth by controlling the 7 mountains of society: family, religion, education, arts and entertainment, commerce, media, and government. And as Parker said, he believes that God created government and that God is calling and equipping people to step back into those mountains of society. Now, this might sound fringe, but the beliefs behind the 7 Mountains ideology, and specifically the ideologically driven effort to get believers into powerful positions in our government, is not fringe at all. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson recently said that he believes the separation of church and state is, quote, a misnomer. In an interview on CNBC, Johnson said that he believes the founders did not want the government to encroach upon the church, not that they didn't want principles of faith to have influence on our public life. It's exactly the opposite, end quote. Shortly after he became speaker, Johnson was apparently not aware that there was media in the room when he compared himself to Moses while speaking about his ascension to the speakership in a speech to conservative lawmakers. This week, a state senator in Oklahoma made a statement about the death of a non-binary teenager named Nex Benedict, who was beaten in a school bathroom the day before they died. The senator said, quote, "We're going to fight to keep that filth out of the state of Oklahoma because we are a Christian state," end quote. Another political action group that follows similar beliefs, called My God Votes, aims to rally believers to get involved in government and to vote for their endorsed candidates. The pastor who ran its inaugural event last month in Houston started off by listing the many people who will be on the ballot during this primary who were in attendance, including a candidate for Congress, state senators, state representatives, school board officials, and sheriffs. And then he said this.
I want to start off by saying this is not a political event. And I say that with all sincerity because what we're doing here tonight is kingdom business. This is God's business. Those who serve in office are called God's ministers for good. And it says that he is not a minister. He is a minister to execute wrath on those who practice evil. And so we have a line of defense that we elect and put in office to execute wrath. They call him God's avenger. All you who are elected people, I want you to know you are God's avenger to execute wrath against evil. So thank you for serving in God's kingdom tonight.
You are God's avenger to execute wrath against evil. There have been rulings and bills in Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, and Idaho that allow those states to bring religious practices into public schools or to use public funds for religious schools. I could go on. There are seemingly endless examples of recent blurring of the line or overt tearing down of the line between church and state. But our founders, the very first thing they decided to fix with the role of religion in this country, the First Amendment, written in 1791, reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech, which is the one we normally associate with this amendment, or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The very first amendment. What the founders meant by establishment has been debated intermittently since this was written, but despite many challenges to the so-called establishment clause, the Supreme Court affirmed the separation of church and state repeatedly over decades. However, in the last 2 years, this very conservative U.S. Supreme Court has delivered a series of blows to the Establishment Clause, allowing prayer in school, allowing businesses to deny service to LGBTQ plus individuals, allowing public funds to go toward religious schools. Meanwhile, Trump is capitalizing on the momentum of the religious right, promising to fight for the Christian right, all the while his team organizes a plan of action that is steeped in Christian nationalism.
Now, if that is not simple enough to understand, if you take a look at the trajectory of not only the judge in Alabama, but the new Speaker of the House and Johnson, and if we go ahead and listen to their words, again, this is that completely evil alliance between MAGA and Christian nationalists to control not just women, to control not just bodies of others, but to simply pervert what is the United States of America, something that we simply cannot allow to occur.
We spend a lot of time.
Absolutely, we simply cannot allow to occur. Let's go to the phones. Don't forget, though, folks, 713-526-5738 is the number, extension number 2 to get on air right away. And remember, you are the most important part of the program. Let's go to Moses. Good morning, Moses, line number 1. How are you doing this morning, my dear?
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, corazón.
Wow. I've always said the church is today is like the whore. If those Christians have the Bible in their hand, they have it upside down. Because, number one, the false prophets in the mega churches are the ones that are taking bribes to strengthen the hands of wicked men that they turn not from their wickedness. When you have seen what Donald Trump have done and you in the church are supporting this, then tell me where you are. Are you on the side of God or are you on the side of hell? Number 2, the separation of church and state was instituted for the reason that the founding fathers had seen the ravages of the church, the human carnage. You have the different, what they had experienced in Europe is what pushed them into America, so that they would not have to suffer the same thing. And yet, we see their forebears, their great-grands, their children now have come and have turned their backs on what their fathers have tried to stop. Now, talking about the pastors who open their mouths and say this kind of, vitriol and say this kind of lie, that Bible that is in their hands, it says, woe to the pastors who scatter and destroy the flock of my pastors. You eat the flesh, but you do not feed the flock. And it says, if you had taught the people the true words of God, all of this mess would not have happened. You would not have to be supporting a man like Donald Trump if you had taught the people the right way. So they have the Bible in their hands upside down. And he said, leaders of the people cause them to err, and those who are led of them are destroyed. And finally, I will say, Americans, open your eyes. Those people who are going to those churches, take your time, and you have a Bible in your hand. Don't read it upside down, because your pastors are selling you to hell. And that's all I'll say.
Moses, you are a preacher in your own right, and maybe Ed Young need to have a session with you. Ed Young being the pastor of the Second Baptist Church, who had a complete sentence, a complete narrative, a complete what is it called? A sermon on disparaging people. A complete sermon on that. I'm cutting that video up so people can see how can a pastor sound this way or say these things. First of all, much of what he said were lies. Just like after Donald Trump won last night, the narrative that he gave in his speech, provable lies, and good people that are going to be supporting him, that are listening to him, will have a completely false view of America based on what he said, which was a litany of lies. Thank you very kindly for your call, Moses. I need to go to Joe Big Oil.
First of all, much of what he said were
all right,
lies.
let's go to Joe Big Oil. Come on in, Joe Big Oil.
What's going on, Egberto?
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Greetings from the bus stop. Man, is this how it's going to be for the next year? You know, are we gonna talk about religion and abortion for a whole year? I mean,
let me tell you what we're going to talk about. No, let me tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk. The first thing that we're going to do is deprogram. In other words, anytime we hear untruths from any candidate, and now it seems like Nikki Haley is falling out today, so it's going to be officially Biden versus Donald Trump. And what we will be doing on this program as well, and it's not going to be only the presidential race, but it's going to be all races throughout the state and country. We are going to be making sure to tell the truth, to ensure that the American people make their decisions based on truth and not based on lies. So that's what we're going to do. And that's what you heard me talk about.
I've been listening to your show for a long time now. And you will not be doing that, right? You will not be telling the truth. You will selectively cherry pick what you want to talk about to support only the candidates that you support, right? You're not interested in the truth. And I've been listening for a long time.
May I ask you a question, Joe? Joe, have you not heard me criticize both parties?
You are a never Trumper, dude. You suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, almost as bad as the guy that comes on at 8, right?
Let me ask you a question, Joe. Please tell me something that I have said. And this is what I always ask my friends on the right, because what happens with a lot of my friends on the right is that they're so into Trump that many times they can't see what he's doing. And if I say something, I simply ask one question: correct me where I am wrong with specifics. And if I am wrong, just like yesterday, I had a right-wing caller called in and mentioned some stuff about the employments that, Trump's employees or whatever on my 3:00 show. When I started the 3:00 show, I started the show with an apology to my right-wing friend, who I stated, I got the numbers wrong, sir. You were right. That's what this show is all about, Joe. So please don't use blanket statements and say that I suffer from Trump derangement syndrome without giving me a specific where I've erred.
Well, I heard you say that I think Trump is evil incarnate, and everything you do here is
okay. Let's examine that. Let's examine that statement. Any presidential candidate.
Let's not, Egberto, because really what I want to say is that all this talk of Christian nationalism, right? It's been brought up. It's the new stick, right? It's the new stick ever since that lady, or ever since a few key people have dropped that phrase on there. It sounds bad, Christian nationalists, right? It's like national socialists, right? It's a bad sounding term, right?
All right.
Okay. Wait. Let's say that there's Muslim candidates, right? And if I were to say that, look, Muslim candidate is for decapitating babies and blowing up people, right? Then that would be bad. That would be bad for me to say. And it's just as bad for you to paint Christians, right, in a negative light. And as somebody who I have held human tissue in my hands many times as part of my work, right? You feel a sense of reverence, right? Of reverence that this human tissue is important somehow. And one thing I never hear, and I don't think abortion should be. I don't think it should be the government's business at all. I mean, the government should butt out of a lot of things, and abortion is one of them. I don't want to talk about abortion. It doesn't belong. There should be no government policy about it. It's between you and your doctor.
But the candidate that you support, sir, brags.
Nothing that you say talks about that life. It's you only talk about the woman, and she's definitely the more important of the two. But that human life, there's no denying that is a human life inside her, and it's interesting that you never acknowledge that, or any of these people who say that I'm proud to murder babies.
No,
right?
Joe, you've been going on for Joe. I've given you a full 3 minutes, and I haven't been able to respond to the entire set of things that you've been saying. So let me go ahead and take it.
Okay.
All right. So let me go ahead and say it one by one. I ask again, if you have a specific where you found me to be wrong, and I got a few specifics out there, which I think you mischaracterized. You don't have license to be able to, whether you are wrong or right, or I am wrong or right. We have the right to believe based on our own science, not our own science, based on science, whether a fetus, whether a embryo is a life or not. You believe it is. I don't. That is a legitimate thing that we can. Can I finish?
Words in my mouth, right?
Did I not let you finish your statement, Joe? Come on, man. We have a discourse. We have a discourse here. All right. We can legitimately disagree on that. All right. You believe that's a life. I don't. But you want to pass policies that forces everybody into your belief. People that believe in choice says, if you believe what Joe believes, Joe has the right to live his life that way. But if you don't believe what Joe believes, you have the right otherwise as well. The people that are really taking the rights away from people are not folks who believe in choice. I honestly believe you believe when it comes to a zygote or whatever, that it is a life. You believe that. And we give you that latitude to believe that and act on it. The problem is you want to take that right away from everybody else. It's the same thing that happens with taking books out of the libraries. Whereas we are saying you can go ahead and a parent can say, I don't want my child to have any part of this library or remove books from the library. That's not what these people on the right want. They want to tell everybody, do it my way. And that's the difference that we're talking about. When it comes to Trump derangement syndrome, as you said that I have, that's not it at all. We just point out the things the way they are. And if we err, we ask you, please, Joe, tell me specifically what I need to correct, just like Mike did when he came on and spoke at 3:00. It's that simple. I don't want to be the person out there just saying my way or the highway. I honestly want, if I make a mistake, to come out and tell you that I did.
Okay, but don't say that I want to regulate this or that. What I said is not what you said. What I said is it's none of the government's business what you do, right? But it's between you and your doctor.
Exactly. So you're a pro-choice person. You are pro-choice.
No, I'm a MAGA person. I am MAGA, man. My
brother. You're my brother. Listen to this. Donald Trump specifically told his audience, he is the one responsible for putting 3 judges on the Supreme Court who overturned Roe v. Wade. And he also said if he becomes president, he will make sure that 16 weeks becomes the law of the land for abortion in women. So what I'm saying is nothing that I'm saying is false. It may not be something you want to hear because it kind of even goes against what you believe, because your guy does a lot of things that you, Joe Oilman, don't believe in. My phones are filling up, Joe, but you have a standard platform here, so you can call anytime. We'll talk again tomorrow, okay?
Thanks, Egberto. Have a great day.
You too, my brother. All right, I see a person I don't think I've called before. Josie, come on in.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to say, right or wrong has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with what's inside, right? Mm-hmm. How you treat others, how you believe others should be treated, and how you want to be treated. It's not a far concept to understand humanity, right? That we're all humans. We all deserve the right to, be happy and do the things that make us happy within a certain amount of legalities or laws, right? We need those. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, it's not a far concept to understand why religion and politics are 2 different entities, and they should not be mixed together. I don't need a church to tell me what is right or wrong. I know what's right or wrong. It's something that you either learn or it's already born within you, unless there's, mental health issues or other things that cloud that. But for us to begin to mix church or religion and state, if people don't see what's coming, what we're fighting across the waters, or what we say is fighting across the waters, is what we're actually wanting to do. I don't get that. Like, how do you not see that?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people see it. And not only that, I think a whole lot of people within all churches, including the churches that so far in a lot of my narrative have lost their way. I think the people within these churches see it. I mean, if you just listen to how Joe just came across, I mean, I think Joe is, you look at the things that he said, Joe has a lot of progressive concepts. So when he's like, it's a choice of, he says those things, but he cannot, and this happens with a lot of people who are wedded to an individual or a concept or whatever. It's hard to detach the concept from the things that you believe. And that is why what you said, Josie, is so important. That is why you must disassociate religion from something like politics and policies. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Anything else, Josie?
That is all. Thank you for being here every morning.
Thank you so kindly for calling in. Let's go to Joni. Come on in, Joni. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. Egberto, your show is better than a cup of coffee. It gets me going on the way to work.
Thank you, sis.
Just a couple of things. Mahatma Gandhi said, he was an attorney. He said, anyone who believes that religion and politics are not related knows very little about either, because it controls people. My faith was born originally of Baptist church, but I listened to Joe and bless him. He that whole perspective from the right. Number one, they're not consistent with being pro-life, because they don't support environmental policies, social policies, safety net policies that other developed countries do, that are consistent with taking care of children when they're here. They're really, really concerned about getting them here, but then once they're here, it's a goodbye. Now you're on your own. It's up to your parents, instead of having any assistance with that. that's one point. And the second one, I'll try to be brief, is that, but I don't know if you heard of the book from way back called Left Behind, where the good people are going to be the rapture, the good people are going to be taken, and the evil people will be left here to suffer the fire and everything. Well, that guy that wrote that book was in league with people who believe that it's okay to go ahead and use up what we've been given here by, the forces of creation, God, if you will. It's okay to use it up because Jesus is going to come back and take us out of it unless you're evil. And that perspective is supported by an oil industry. Tim LaHaye himself, I believe, if you look him up, he's the author of that book series. He was very connected to the oil industry. It supports that way of thinking so that you don't have to, have people that are up in arms to try to protect our resources and our air and our water. But these, when you poison the air and water, you're poisoning children. When you have to go to war to procure the resources, for oil and oil development, you're killing children. So they're very, very inconsistent with their, beliefs. And when you point it out to them, they get very, very angry. And of course you're the one that's the problem if you point out that they might have an inconsistency. But anyway, once again, I appreciate you. My heart rate's going pretty good, and I'm going to get through the day because I've gotten my cup of coffee that is Egberto's show. Thank you again.
Thank you so kindly, Joni. Joni, if I can just respond to you and say one thing to kind of bring folks together here. You see what you said is so right. And the thing about it is articulated that way with somebody who has developed a respect for you goes a long way. So believe it or not, you making that, notice I just let you fly with that narrative because you are hitting topic after topic and nail after nail. You have, with that narrative, a lot of seeds have been planted because it was so cogent. Thank you so kindly for your call.
Thank you, Egberto.
Have a great day. Let's go to Brother Augie. Come on in, Augie. How you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning to you and Genius number one over there.
Yes, he's in the studio, Senor Jacques.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, these MAGA guys nitpick on one thing, and when I call them out on that one thing, they go on to number two, and then number three, and then when I, give them truth and not their lies, they don't care. They equate lies with truth, and they say that's equal, but it's not. But these religious folks, they don't read their Bible. In the Old Testament, God slew whole cities. They talk about the Muslims wanted to kill people. In the Old Testament, a whole bunch of people got killed because they didn't believe the same as the Jews did. But in the New Testament, Christ came. I came to change things, and he said, "Give to God what is God, and to Caesar what is Caesar." Right there in the New Testament, they don't read the New Testament. It seems like because there was a separation of state and government in the Bible, and then he had the Beatitudes about how we're supposed to treat our fellow man. These religious guys, like I said, I grew up in the 50s and 60s when hate, bigotry, racism was legal. I remember in my city in San Antonio, in the prosperous part of it, there was a Baptist church and a Catholic church across the street. The Baptists got out before the Catholics did. And the Baptist men were waiting for the Catholics to come out with the priest, the husbands and wives and children. And they're yelling across the street, telling them all kinds of ugly talks, calling them all kinds of names, the priest, the fathers, the mothers, the children, and all that they were going to hell because of the way they believe religiously. And that's the way these MAGA reporters are. There's one that grew up with me, and I remember him saying how he could solve problems with a gun. And that's what we saw on January 6th. They wanted to kill Pence and Pelosi and anybody else who doesn't agree with them. Well, that's what they did in the Bible. The religious leaders and followers of that time killed Jesus because they didn't like what he was saying. They wanted the guy that would come on a steed and smite the people that the Jews didn't like. Well, this guy didn't do that. He came on in a donkey. And I remember seeing one of these cowboy preachers on a golden stallion giving his spiel. And at the end, he says, well, when he comes back, maybe he'll come in a golden stallion, like I'm riding here, like golden palomino. He said, well, the first time he came, he could have done that, but he didn't. And because he didn't, the religious followers killed him. And that's what they do nowadays. They want to kill anybody who doesn't agree with them.
Augie, a lot of this is leadership, right? And I strongly believe that. And if you make the mistake and put your faith in one seed, first of all, put your faith in a leader and seed your thinking, seed your beliefs to that leader and have that leader coerce that belief system. That is where we're at. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's a trait in humanity or not, but we have a tendency to follow leaders. And what I think, I don't know if that is by design or is that by where we've allowed ourselves to go. I think it's the latter, where we've allowed ourselves to go. And if it's where we have allowed ourselves to go, I strongly believe, based on what I'm doing for the rest of my life now, is that I can't empower anybody, but I can let everybody know that they're already empowered to think, and they don't have to go by what's been told to them. They just have to use their own minds. But Augie, I got another call to take. Thank you so kindly, my brother. Every morning, listening to my peeps. Enjoy. Thank you, brother.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to John. Come on in, John. How you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Egberto. I want to tap your brain on what you think about these endless foreign wars, and can't we use that money to do, build our schools, build our infrastructure, raise the pay for teachers, fix all our problems at home instead of spending money because sometimes I think we, the U.S., we're in the business of having wars to supply the military-industrial complex, like Eisenhower predicted back in the 50s, and we need a negotiated settlement in Ukraine. We just can't be spending money. We can't be the world's policeman anymore. I don't know what you think about that.
First of all, you're right. You heard the term that says I always get it wrong. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Look, I don't believe in war. And not only that, the people who fight the wars are never the people who benefit from whoever the victor is. And again, war, most people around the world can do without war. I mean, war is fought for a few, right? I mean, if you take a look at why is it that America spends more in its military budget than the next 10 countries combined. I repeat, I wrote a book called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom several years ago. And I did all these numbers, pulled all this data down. And it is a shame, but we as a country spend all this money. Every time you hear a politician, and this goes Democratic or Republican, they all want to, they're all paid by the defense industrial complex, and they all allow the defense industrial complex to define the narrative, right? And people are just the cogs. Yes. You take a look at the war in Israel right now, with over 30,000 people dead with our 2,000-pound bombs, etc. Each of those bombs, I think, costs, don't quote me here, but let's say on the order of $500, and we're selling them all for, I don't remember if it's $8,000 or $16,000 per bomb. We've dropped thousands of bombs dropped. Who's making money off of war? Why is there no incentive to stop war?
Exactly. Every bomb that goes off is cha-ching, for what Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., the president's father, would say, the war profiteers.
Now think about this. Every bomb that goes off educate a kid for a year. Look at it that way. Amen. Every 2,000 bomb dropped, educate a kid for a year. Now, that is only the bomb. That's only the bomb. That doesn't speak about the fuel and the jet, the price of the jet. I mean, it is ridiculous.
And the supply chain, the supply chain, all these foreign bases. I mean, we're in the business. The U.S. is in the business of having wars, and we have a military-industrial complex that supplies jobs. Okay, I get it in districts. I get it. But somehow we need a leader or a American value system where we stop doing this insane expenditure of funds on destroying things.
John, you said two sentences, and the second sentence is, I think, where we need to go. You said we need a leader, and then you said, or we need something else and I think the reason why things don't happen the way they should is we have ceded the grassroots to leaders, right? I think if we went ahead and the grassroots don't want war, and I'm talking about the grassroots of every country, whether it be Muslim, Christian, or anything in between. The average person on the ground, they don't want war. They don't want to blow other people up or have other people. But the few that gets it done gets everybody else engaged. I mean, if you go to a conference in Monrovia, wherever you go, you'll find out, oh, God, we all want the same thing, man. We do. And it ain't war.
Yeah, exactly. It ain't war. Yeah. Well, and I'll end it. I talked to you yesterday about Robert F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy Jr. or Robert F. Kennedy. And he said something pretty, I don't know if it's original, but he's pro-Palestinian, but anti-Hamas. Meaning, just we all want justice and peace for the Palestinian people. But Hamas they're like the U.S. They're in the military-industrial complex. They're in the business of having wars. And so is Iran. So is, whatever. We just
I hate to put it this way to you, but let's not take blame off of us as well, right? Remember, we go ahead and we take this. We are the storytellers. So we don't tell the story from the point of view as far as our involvement. Let's just look at what's going on in Gaza right now. Okay, just as a quick example. Right now, the way the rest of the world sees it is we are very, very complicit in the deaths of all these people. Don't you think blowback is coming, John? And when the blowback comes, we are then going to attack on the blowback. There is a reckoning that's coming for those thousands of Palestinians that are dead. And this is not at all to forget what Hamas has done to our Jewish brothers and sisters. There's one has nothing to do with the other, but there's blowback coming, and all of us are going to pay for it. But anyway, anything else, John, before we move on?
Well, I could talk forever about because you're so interesting. I listen to you every morning. I was a first-time caller a few days ago. And I thought I could jump over to the border if you want, but that might be off topic.
Well, just give me. Everything is on topic because it's your show. It's the show that belongs to everybody, and you're the last person on the call right now. So give me your take on the border, and then we'll move on.
So Egberto, my perspective might be a little unique. I'm the son of immigrants, and I have immigrant sons. So I'm pro-immigrant, immigrant. But on the other hand, we need to somehow make legal immigration easier. Get bright young minds from all over the planet. I recently did a substitute. I'm a physician, surgeon, scientist, and I recently went a substitute taught AP physics, and everyone in that class were immigrants. It was awesome, and we need measured, meritocratic, easy legal immigration for what we need or worker visas or something like that. Because I'm big pro immigrant, but it's a mess right now. The border is a freaking mess, and I think everyone agrees with it.
I agree with it, and I agree with neither party has done what it really takes to solve the problem. Because if you're trying to solve the problem at the border with a wall, if you're trying, let's just give an example. The only way to get to Canada is by boat or by air. So it's harder for people to come down from north into south. Notice we don't even need a very controlled border between Canada and the United States. It's not because, and it's because that you would not have that crazy migration just because of geography. But when it comes to going south and coming up, well, the people go. But if you are trying to solve a problem at the border, and this is what I tell folks, why I say we all have to educate ourselves. You have to first understand why these people are coming here and how are we, our economic system, our political system, how is it complicit in causing that migration? People don't just want to get up and leave their place. They don't. So we're asking the wrong questions or giving the wrong solutions by thinking the solution is at the border. The solution is by the time it reaches the border, it is way too late. We have to understand what is the real genesis of this people coming to the country. Anyway, I got to go to another call, John. Anything else that you want to say real quick?
Yeah. No, great. Listen, you're brilliant. You're entertaining. You're great. So if it's okay, I'll call in from time to time.
You can call in anytime. This is y'all's show, man. Thank you so kindly, John.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Brian, my brother Brian. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Talk to me.
Okay. The Palestinians overwhelmingly voted in Hamas as their leadership government type program. 78% voted for Hamas. So, yeah, you want blowback? Yeah, you got it. You get what you vote for. So,
okay. So, may I ask you the same question in reverse? The rest of the world think that, or a large portion of the rest of the world, and please let me just tell you, this is not arguable. You can read newspapers from around the world. They don't like Donald Trump as being someone that they think is against them. Are you willing to be collectively punished for having voted for Donald Trump?
Well, yeah, that's what the people wish. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, then at least you're consistent, Brian, because what I'm saying is if we get to the point where you say, if you guys elect this group and a few people in this group does XYZ that's bad, so therefore we will punish all of you who voted for that group, then the paradigm has changed. And okay, that's going to be a very, very difficult world to live in. The truth of the matter is, let me just say this. It was evil for Hamas to kill, murder, maim, rape 1,200 Jewish people. That shows a degree of evil that is just horrendous. I must say, I do not see the difference between that evil and the evil of Netanyahu and what's occurring in Gaza from the beginning of the bombing to other human beings. And if you can see the difference in that, I bet if you went ahead and knew a few of these bodies that laid under those rubbles, those bodies that had nothing to do with politics, those bodies that had nothing to do with killing ever in their lives, you'll ask, why do they have that fate? Because, it's just inhumane. It was inhumane what Hamas did, and it is inhumane what Netanyahu and the IDF is doing in Gaza right now. And I tell you, it's asymmetric, which means Netanyahu has proven that he's willing to kill a hell of a lot more than Hamas is able to kill. And that's just a statement of fact. Continue, Brian.
No, that's all I had to say is...
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, my brother, and you keep listening, keep calling, etc. Anyway, folks, we are at 55 right now. I just have a little 1-minute rant about our local elections. The people have spoken. I leave any details of the elections for tomorrow when we are going to have Neil Aquino, which is our local guy from the Houston Democracy Project. We'll have a few commentaries about the local election. Suffice it to say, most of it went exactly as we thought it would. And I think the people have spoken. They've executed their right to the vote, and it was beautiful. It looks like I'm going to have one more quick call. Let's see, just pass it through, let it fly, and I'll ask who it is. because we got to get out of here. Oh, it's hung up. All right, good. Anyway, Jack, give me a closer if you're at the mic.
Yeah. Well, what I got was, man created God in his own image, and he did this to lead sheeple, the fall from grace, punishment, judgment, bringing wrath to evil, upside down, right to left Bible reading. We are all immigrants. We are all hybrids.
Thank you, my brother. Great closing statement. Anyway, folks, I want to thank all the great callers. I want to call all the great listeners. I thank you for your ears because, together, I think there's a hell of a lot we can solve. I want to thank Jack in the studio by his lonesome, taking care of business and making sure all these strings are connected to the streams, to the 100,000 watt transmitter, etc. I want to wish Brother Howard Reynolds out there making a few bucks because we definitely don't pay him what he's worth. And again, to all, love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.